this a lot of thought, Nick, and I want to run it by you.
Sure.
I think the surefire first ballot Hall of Famer, Mantar. Everything has a more real sports feel, and it gets you invested that much more.
The dude's teeth aren't probably as big either.
It gives it more of a big fight feel. It makes it feel more real. If that glass shatters, I won't be ashamed. There will be happy man tears streaming down my face. Just the goosebumps will be bumped out. I'll hold my arm out like The Rock so you can see my goosebumps. And I'll have happy man tears coming down my face if that glass shatters. Oh, my goodness.
And now, your hosts of the Card Subject to Change podcast, the For Frequency's Sake Tag Team Champions of the World, the Wizard CZ, and never wrong, Nick Bull.
Hello, one and all, and welcome to another exciting edition of the Card Subject to Change podcast. I am your host, Never Wrong, Nick Bull, battling some voice issues, but don't fret. If the voice can't follow through. My partner here is available for the hot tag. We are tag team champions of the For Frequency's Sake network. I'd be remiss if I did not introduce to you my tag team partner, my co-host, the Wizard CZ. Wiz, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing pretty good. Better than you a little bit. I know you yelled yourself hoarse last night at the SCW Pro show. Shout out to SCW for putting on another great event. Their biggest show of the year was yesterday. But Nick, you were also burning the midnight oil after the show with some family stuff. So I can't imagine how tired you are today.
I was double booked last night, did the SCW show and did my usual front row, be a loudmouth, have fun at the wrestling show, and then went to do a post-prom for my oldest kid, and my back is killing me. I feel like I took some bumps last night, even though I didn't take a single bump. But we're here, and we are very excited for this episode. We've got a first-time guest on the show. We know him from Iron Spirit Pro, but I'm sure we're going to get to know a lot more about our guest here this week. Our guest on this episode, 118, entering the abstract, none other than Xac Abstract. Xac, how you doing, and welcome to the show.
I'm doing good. Thank you guys for having me. I must say, you still sound good, man. We still sound good. Even if you were, going hard last night, still sounding good. Good for the podcast noises. So thank y'all for having me.
We're glad you're here. I'm going to go ahead and ask you the first question I ask all of our guests.
Spoiler.
Why pro wrestling? What got you hooked on wrestling? Maybe as a youngster, or what kept you coming back to this wonderful world, this thing that we love called pro wrestling?
So me personally, I'm actually a lifer. I don't remember a time that I wasn't watching professional wrestling. Even my mom explains it to me as when I was a small child, I would just stop in front of the TV and just sit and watch, and I'd just be quiet. It just totally zoned in. So I always been a wrestling fan. And as I get older and even learn more about the business, it's like I continue to fall in love with it for different reasons. So I think I'll always be a fan forever.
All right, so you're growing up, you're watching wrestling. Who is the first wrestler you remember gravitating towards that just drew your attention like nobody else?
So when I was very young, obviously it was The Rock for me. The Rock was my guy. Always. But when it came to more like in-ring stuff, I really loved Rey Mysterio and Shawn Michaels for sure.
All three great names. You had to be a big fan of what happened on WrestleMania Night 1. The Rock looked like $1 million in that match, did he not?
Oh, yes, he did. Well, what's funny, the whole time I was watching it, I was scared he was going to wear the pants the whole time. So I made a point. I protested with everyone else watching. He better take the pants off. There's no way he's going to be this body guy and wrestle in these pants. Take the damn pants off. And he did. So yes, and he looked great.
As a 52-year-old body guy, he looked amazing and took some tremendous bumps in that match. He was my MVP of that match, just for taking the bumps that he did and for looking as good as he did for 52
Yes.
years old.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I loved it. I was happy with all of Mania, to be honest.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, absolutely. So what was that crystallizing moment in your life that said, I got to do this. I've got to be a part of this. I've got to get in that ring.
Well, it's like I said, it was always around, right? But where I'm from, I know we touched on it briefly before. I'm from Joplin, Missouri, and down here there's not really too much wrestling. I think back in maybe like 04, 06, there were some SmackDown house shows. But outside of that, maybe some TNA here and there. But we weren't, on the regular schedule like like Chicago or St. Louis or Kansas City. So it was always around, and by the time I was in high school, it was kind of like, okay, well, what do I want to do with my life? And it kind of just seemed so far away. It didn't seem like it could really happen until I really started to look into it and realize that this could actually be my profession. So I guess maybe just being ridiculed by teachers to find a real job forced me to kind of look into it, how to make it really, really happen. So probably when I realized, I gotta do something with my life, and why not be the thing that I'm most passionate about?
Well, abstract is an art form. Take
Yes.
us into the backstory of Xac Abstract, how you come up with that name, and then what do people expect, or what can people expect when they see you in the ring? What kind of art form is Xac Abstract?
Yeah. So and what for me is the funnest part is abstract is me being able to be me, really. Because before, some people may know, I had a few gimmicks before now this point, and I just needed to kind of get away from that.
Sure.
Like I had probably touched on before, that the more I'm in the business and learning so much, I learn. You got to learn how to be yourself as a wrestler too. And once you start to learn to be yourself, you kind of have to go that path with it, no matter where you are in that moment, that you realize, oh, maybe I need to go this way instead of that way. So it's really me being me, which is kind of metaphor for the idea that wrestling is art, and they tell you, oh, this is your canvas, paint it how you wish. Which is me being me, and what I feel like me authentically can offer to the world of professional wrestling, and maybe just a little excuse to be as weird as I want to be, and just kind of try things, because I think that I also take a artistic approach to wrestling, that it is a process and there is so much beauty in it. So yeah, it's really just me being able to be me, and I feel like with that, I know where I'm going, and I can kind of create this vibe, if you will, on what the character is, but also to kind of be unique to myself.
You raise a good point there, Xac. You talk about being yourself more in the ring. And I read something somewhere on this recent run of Roman Reigns and this incredible run that he had, that he let himself bleed into the character. And I think people got to see the real Roman Reigns for the first time. And it just turned out to be when he was the most successful part of his career. Have you found that where you're being more yourself in this current iteration of your character? You find it easier? You find it
Yes,
that yourself is coming across more to the fans by being your real self?
yes, absolutely. And even it's from the moment I step through the curtain to the moment I'm interacting with the fans. I can just be me, and I don't have to be something that I'm not, or make it obvious that I'm trying to be something else. I just feel like for me that it works. Like, I understand people have very successful gimmicks that are great, but also I just feel like I'm the type of wrestler that just needs to be me, and that'll translate.
Now, you're a younger guy compared to us two old hacks, CZ and I. Do you think that's a big thing for younger wrestlers to grasp, is the sooner you can become yourself and relay your real self into your character, maybe the easier things are picked up and maybe the easier things become?
Yes, but I don't think you can fast track it, if that makes sense.
Yes,
Like,
no, I understand.
that you have to kind of mess up and fail a few times before you're like, this, this doesn't work for me. This doesn't work for me, but this is excelling over here. So let's kind of, work on that. it takes time. There's no fast tracking it. And I'm glad that I'm at a point where I can finally have found it and now really expand on the wrestler that I am. But I do think it is important that you do need to find yourself, but it does take time.
Oh, absolutely, and that's with anything that it's going to take time to kind of find your footing. Xac, what is your prep work for a match? Is there a routine that you go through the day of, the week of? How do you get yourself into gear to just be that Xac Abstract in the ring?
So, truthfully, I think for it, if you really want the life of a professional wrestler and you want to be a professional wrestler, it goes into almost every decision that you make. It's not about I got to get ready for this match. It's about always being ready to wrestle. You know, there's so many layers to what we do as wrestlers that kind of gets overlooked. It's not just I show up on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday and wrestle, and then that's it. I stay steady in the gym. What I eat is very important to me. The way that I'm upkeeping my body because of the abuse you take in wrestling alone. I really think it's an everyday thing. But for me, if we're talking like pre-match ritual, I would say I just need to because before going out there, obviously there's always going to be nerves, but I think it's just important to find myself, do a little bit of breathing exercises, and remember why I'm here, and then I can go out and kill it.
We're joined by Xac Abstract here on the Card Subject to Change podcast, the podcast by the fan for the fan. We are powered by Lopez Pizza, built by Durham Remodeling, colored by Ryan Allison Tattoo, and protected by Jared Zook of Country Financial. We're so glad you're joining us here on this current episode. I want to go back to a thing you said a couple questions ago, Xac. How frustrating was that trial and error period? When you say that's something that all wrestlers, young wrestlers alike, must go through to find yourself. Obviously, you've got to the point to where you need to be with this current character, but how frustrating or how rewarding was that trial and error period where you're trying different things? Maybe this didn't work and that didn't work, but this did work. How do you get through that trial and error period and come out on the other side with a positive mindset is what I'm trying to get to.
Well, truthfully, you gotta keep going. That's really, you gotta keep going because for me, what my issue was the mentality side of everything. Maybe not the physical part of things, but for me, it was the mental side of things and what really separates good wrestling from just wrestling.
Sure.
That it was so just tough for me. I felt like I was at a wall for like maybe a good year and a half, 2 years. I felt like I was at a wall. And truthfully, there was points where I'm just not good at it and I want to quit. But luckily I stuck with it and continued to learn. Which I think that's part of wrestling is you always continue to learn. I think that's how you level up. It's just building upon and building upon. But you just gotta keep pushing and you gotta keep learning.
I like that phrase you use, leveling up. I think that can be used in any asset of life. We're constantly trying to learn and make ourselves better, whether it's professionally, whether it's with our family and home life or with our friends or whatever. You're always constantly trying to level up. So I like that you use that term. In the big picture, I think that's what we're all trying to do.
Right, exactly.
Iron Spirit Pro is how we know you, Xac Abstract. Talk about some of the other companies that you've worked for. You travel, a pretty long ways when you get from Joplin. You're coming from Joplin, Missouri to Bloomington Normal area. Talk about the other companies that you work for, and the roads you've traveled, so to speak.
Yes. So I'm kind of hitting most cities from southern Missouri up to Chicago. I wrestle, I wrestle All-Star Lucha Libre out of Berwyn. I also wrestle Megastars out of Berwyn. It just so happened that this year a lot of companies are running out of that building, which I've always thought that was a special building anyway for professional wrestling. So it was just very ironic. But normal St. Louis Anarchy in St. Louis. I will be in Kansas City this upcoming May the 10th. Actually, the day before Iron Spirit, so I'll be in Kansas City before then. A little bit over in Arkansas, which my idea this year, like I had mentioned before we started filming, is to go a little further south, because I feel like if I can go south and I can stay busy up north, for one, my schedule will be complete, and I will be hitting a lot of what I think are important areas in the independent scene.
Now, Xac, I want to ask you. I want to backtrack a little bit. You said you're wrestling in Berwyn. Is that at the Eagles Club?
Yes, sir.
That is such a historic building for wrestling.
Yes.
I have been there many times in my past. Saw names like Colt Cabana, Eric Cannon, who's really big on the indies. Such a magical venue. I just wanted to be sure that if you haven't been to a show, if you're in the Chicago area in the Berwyn Eagles Club,
yes, sir,
get yourself to a show.
Yeah,
we have a question. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, currently there are many companies running out of Berwyn Eagles. So, All Star Lucha Libre is running on June 9th, I believe. I'm sure that you can find one running on a weekend, but there are so many companies running out of there, which I think is amazing, and just a beautiful story for that building completely.
Now, Xac, one of our longtime podcast listeners and watchers, Stryker, has a question for you here. What is your number one dream opponent in the future?
Are we talking professional wrestling as a whole, or?
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah, whatever you want to interpret that as.
So, I think I was watching a video about Rey Mysterio Jr. Speaking about all his stem cell that he heavily recommends for the longevity of his career. I don't know how, but I would love to have a match with Rey Mysterio Jr. That's my dream match.
Having seen you in Iron Spirit, I think that would be a fantastic match. I would love to. I would be in the front row for that if I could.
Well, thank you.
So
go ahead, CZ.
Go ahead. No. You do your thing, Nick. You were about to plug our show.
Just said we're joined by Xac Abstract here. This is episode 118 of the Card Subject to Change podcast, the podcast by the fan for the fan. And Xac, going back to your past when you said you've always been around wrestling and it's been around your childhood, was there a show or a DVD that you always fell back on, that you always watched over and over again, that that you always went back to as a kid or maybe as an adult now? Is there a show you go back and watch that you really love?
Yeah. So one of the beautiful things about professional wrestling is it never ends. So as a child, I was watching, every single Monday. Unfortunately, I didn't get like UPN, so I didn't get a lot of the early SmackDown stuff. But it was a whole lot of Raw weekly. I specifically remember I had an aunt's boyfriend who had a tape that he had gotten his hands on that was Great American Bash 2004. I believe, which I think had that was Eddie and Ray, correct? I think that was their blow off match.
I'm going to look up the card I'm going to look up the card right now.
Yeah, and I think it had JBL and Batista. I think that's what that card was. I remember having that tape, but I remember the first WrestleMania that we had bought live was WrestleMania 17. Which was like a pretty good Mania.
Oh, just possibly the all-time greatest one, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm a child, just mind blown that all this is happening. But yeah, I remember that was the first WrestleMania that I was able to actually watch live.
All right. So, what are you watching currently? What do you gravitate towards in today's wrestling world?
Like I said, I've always been a fan, so I'm watching everything. I'm watching Monday Night Raw. I'm watching Friday Night SmackDown. I'm watching AEW. I'm watching Collision. I'm subscribed to New Japan World. I'm watching as much DDT and Noah as I can find. I just like to consume everything. because the way I look at it is this is the business I'm in, so I should be aware of everything that's going on. But
Right.
also I just enjoy it. So
Is there a
I'm
particular?
I'm sorry to blanket your statement, but
No, that's
just
okay.
A whole lot of everything. Yeah.
What
Is
do you
there
current-
a- is
what,
there-
what is there something currently that really catches your eye that you don't miss on?
So what's interesting is I think that probably from January up until now, I've been very on point with watching Raw and SmackDown. I think the build up and everything that they've done in the past 4 months is very respectable, especially when the product was what it was, 2 years ago, or 2.5 years ago.
Sure.
That's probably what I've been sure to watch, which is not normally what I focus on.
In your current character of Xac Abstract, plug yourself into a modern day feud. What feud would that be? What company? Who would you like to? What storyline would you like to be a part of currently?
That's an interesting question. Man,
There's a lot of good stuff out there right now. Wrestling's
Yeah.
great right now. There's so much to consume, and there's a lot
so
of good
much
stuff
out
going on right now.
there. Man,
While you think about that, I pulled up that Bash 04 card.
Yes.
JBL beat Eddie Guerrero in a Texas bull rope match.
Okay, that was the match.
The Undertaker beat the Dudley Boys in a handicapped concrete crypt match.
Okay.
Ray defeated Chavo for the cruiserweight.
Okay, it was Ray and Chavo then.
Yep.
Okay.
John Cena defeated Booker T, Rene Dupree. There's a blast from the past. And Rob Van Dam. So, there's some good names, good matches on this card.
Yes, and it was so random that I got my hands on it. It was just,
right.
random. That's just what I had, and so I just played it over and over.
Sure.
Now that you read the card, is this the show where the Undertaker, after he beat the Dudley Boys, buried Paul Bearer in concrete? Is that what the concrete crypt match is?
You mean Paul Heyman?
No. Paul Bearer.
I think you may be right, because that would make sense. Because I remember that. I remember that moment, and it seems like it would make sense there.
I know it was against at least one of the Dudleys, if not both of them, and the Undertaker just after the match decided to put Paul Bearer out of his misery.
Yep. I believe so. And if it's not, I'm going to be very surprised.
Nick is skimming right now.
I'm skimming through it. I think you're probably right. Probably right.
That stands out as one of the biggest standout moments for me is when the Undertaker turned and buried Paul Heyman alive. So I'm pretty sure, and now I kind of want to go back and watch it.
Run it
now,
back. Yeah, why not?
Usually we give homework out on this show, but now we got our guests giving us homework. So I'm gonna have to pop on Bash 04 as well. That's the one with Tori Wilson on the cover. Remember, Tori Wilson's on the cover.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Think you're right.
Oh yeah. Yes, it is. Can't forget that.
Well, gentlemen, let's take a quick moment to pause and pay homage to our sponsors and talk about some of the other great shows on the For Frequency's Sake Network. On the other side of the break, we have a returning moment of focus, so stay tuned for that. But we'll be right back here in just a couple minutes.
Football season may be over, but For Frequency's Sake still has you covered for all your sporting needs. Tune in every Sunday when the best professional wrestling podcast around, Cards Subject to Change, gets you caught up on everything inside the ropes. They won't miss a count with weekly analysis and interviews. More into auto racing? We've got a double dose for you on the track. Tune in to Fast Money with Rod Villagomez each week and win some money with the quickest bets in all of sports. Want more insight from Pit Row? Check out the Green, White, and Checkered podcast where they give their insight on everything happening on and off the track. Need your basketball fix? Points in the Paint has you covered with live shows every other week looking at everything in the association. Backed by popular demand, we have the return of The Payoff Pitch, FFSQC's baseball show, covering you on news around the MLB. If you're missing football, don't fret. Mark and Dan still have you covered in the football lounge. Missing Joe Winkle? Probably not, but he's still here talking sports on Educated Ignorance. Football season might be over, but we've still got you covered. For frequency's sake, you know what we mean.
For frequency's sake is brought to you by Durham Remodeling, serving the Quad City area's remodeling and repair needs since 1973. Clint's Draft House, grab a bite and a pint. 7th Street Moline. Lopez, New York-style pizza served up by the slice or pie, Davenport. Lifted Energy, energy drinks, coffee, donuts, and more, #GetLifted. Atomic Sports Cards and Collectibles, sports cards and memorabilia, vintage clothing, hats, pennants, and more. Ryan Allison Tattoo, step into the vibrant world of tattoos with Ryan Allison. And A Cut Above, offering quality custom woodwork designed specifically around our customers.
Welcome back to the
show.
Nick, who doesn't want to scream because he did enough of that last night at the SCW show.
I did.
I understand. Want to take a moment to talk about an event that we're sponsoring. It is this coming Saturday at the Rock Island County Fairgrounds in East Moline. That is the 3rd annual Sandra Lee Memorial Car and Bike Show. This is a charity event. All proceeds go to the Autism Society of the Quad Cities. It is a suggested donation of $5 to get in to get a wristband. If you want to register a car, that is a $20 to register a car. But why are we sponsoring this, Nick? There's a really good reason. Because you can see wrestlers.
There's going to be some legendary wrestlers there. That's why we're a part of it.
Let's just run down the list a little bit here. You've got the original gorgeous lady of wrestling, Hollywood. You have the Birdman of WWE, Coco Beware. You may know him as Tugboat. You may know him as Typhoon, but you also may know him as the Shockmaster. Mr. Fred Ottman is going to be breaking through the wall to sign autographs and meet people. And I'm super excited for this. You can go down there and climb aboard the train with the Godfather himself.
There you go.
I have a feeling I'm going to have to keep you off that hoe train.
Nick's going to be holding me back the entire time we're down there. No. They are selling limited edition 12 by 18 posters for autographs. You can enter a raffle for a Pepsi pedal car for $1. It's going to be a lot of fun. And not only that, it's May the 4th. So for you Star Wars fans, May the 4th be with you. That being said, we're sitting here. You're listening. You're tuned into the Card Subject to Change podcast by the fans for the fans, powered by Lopez Pizza, built by Durham Remodeling, colored by Ryan Allison Tattoo, and protected by Jared Zook, Country Financial. We have our guest Xac Abstract with us. We will get back to him in just a moment. But first, we have a returning JT Energy, fresh off his honeymoon, coming back with a moment of focus. We'll be right back.
And we're back. That's right. It's time for a moment of focus with the feline phenom, JT Energy. And what exactly are we focusing on? What should we really dial in? You know what? I'll tell you what you should dial in. And that's taking what's in front of you and realizing that's not everything. There's so much more out there that can be a factor, but doesn't have to be. The things that are in front of you, don't let them control you. There's so much more that you can utilize every single day to get the outcome that you, yes, you want. So don't sit, don't sulk, don't settle. Realize what you can do for yourself and what you want. This has been a moment of focus with the feline phenom, JT Energy.
We want to thank JT for his moment of focus. Glad to have him back on the Card Subject to Change podcast, fresh off his honeymoon. We also would be remiss if we did not mention the tribal chief of our For Frequency's Sake network son's birthday. Trip, his birthday is on May the 4th as well. So have a happy birthday, Trip. By the time next time we broadcast, it'll be past the birthday. But we're back here with Xac Abstract on the Card Subject to Change podcast. And Xac, the future's bright for pro wrestling. Seems like the future is going to be bright for you. You got things lined up. What is your 5-year plan? Where do you see yourself in the next, 5 years? Where would you like to be 5 years from this day?
5 years from this day. Whew. Wrestling is the wild, wild west. So
it is.
You never know. I in 5 years, I would be happy if I'm just wrestling to pay all my bills and just wrestling exclusively. Obviously, being signed would be quite nice within the next 5 years.
Sure.
But I definitely feel like I have a foundation to build before all that. So just wrestling more and leveling up more, and if the money comes, then the money comes. But really, just getting better. And like I said, hopefully in 5 years I can be just wrestling.
Now, Xac, you talked earlier about wanting to kind of go a little more south, wrestle in the southern states. Is there a particular wrestling organization within those next 5 years, whether it's obviously being signed by one of the big dogs, AEW or WWE, or just on the independent scene? Is there a particular wrestling company that you want to work for, even if it's just a one-off?
Even if it's just a one-off, companies like AAW, companies like local wrestling, in Texas, what's it, New Texas Pro, GCW is a big one. I mean, I feel like there's so many eyes there, and that's what is needed is the eyes on me, because I feel like I'm in a position where I am confident in my abilities as a wrestler, and now it's just letting the world see who I am.
Talk about the opportunity that would come up if you got to wrestle, say, for a GCW. You're right. A lot of eyes are on that. There's a lot of different names going in and out of that organization. It's a platform for so many different types of wrestling. I look at GCW, and it's not a knock. I call it a cornucopia of wrestling because they just have just about everything on their cards from show to show. What would the GCW crowd see out of a Xac Abstract? What would you bring to the table for GCW that they haven't seen before?
Truthfully, I've been wrestling for a little bit of time now, and I would hope that would be, because the indie wrestling game is it's not a linear path. So you may create buzz, and then it may it dulls down a little bit. Then you're able to actually kind of prove that you're more than just the hype. Like I said, I think I need my foot in the door to show what I can do, and then once I have their attention, I can continue to show what I can do. And for me, the weirdest part of modern wrestling is the whole social media following. Because I'm the guy that wants to get on the road and get out and go to the shows, and you see me there, and that's how you find out who I am. But yeah, really just to get my foot in the door and just to continue to show what I have to offer. And I feel like my style and my pedigree would, I think I would do well in that environment.
You raise a good point there, Xac, and you said the word social media. Talk about how much social media can affect you in the current day product and then go against you in the current day product. Because a lot of times you can see something on social media and it's not what you see when you get there. But I think for the most part, social media is good in the life of a wrestler.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's just like the conversation of social media without wrestling. It can be used for good, and it can be used for as a negative thing.
Oh gosh, yes.
Absolutely. When it comes to wrestling, obviously getting yourself out there is way easier over, GIFs and videos of you wrestling rather than only people able to show up. But also there's this kind of weird idea that if you don't already have an online following, then you're not really worth or legit enough. Which that I don't agree with, because you kind of have to be put on to be on, if that makes sense. Um, so
Yes.
you kind of have to be seen in order to gain that following, and if you're not being seen, even if you are great, um, it's not gonna pan out as well or as quickly or as easily for you. Um, don't get me wrong, it's a great tool, but also there's a lot of it. And I think there was a period in the indies where people were wrestling for the wrong reasons, maybe just to get gift or get a short video to get where they felt like they needed to be. But like we touched on earlier, you can't rush it. And to be a legitimate professional wrestler and a good professional wrestler, it takes time. So it's great, and it can also be damaging.
And I want to throw this out there real quick here. We've been talking about how we know you through Iron Spirit Pro.
Mhm.
If you want to get to know Xac and any of the Iron Spirit Pro wrestlers, they just started a streaming site for their past shows within the last few weeks here. It is video.ironspiritpro.com. You can, I believe, rent or purchase. I believe it's like $5 for a show, if I'm not mistaken, but I'd have to go back and look on the site. But great way to see some fantastic up and coming talent. I know several wrestlers that we've had on the show that work for SCW. You can see there some wrestlers that are coming up on the show that I'm not going to spoil for you now. But if you want to see Xac, that's one of the great ways, if you can't get to where he is physically, to check him out. It's a great tool that I think more wrestling companies, and I want your opinion on this too, Xac. I think more wrestling companies should utilize social media, whether it be a page like what Iron Spirit says set up, whether it be YouTube, IWTV, Triller TV. I think more companies need to utilize that so that more of the younger talent can be put out there.
Yes, absolutely. Any platform to continue to help us build is obviously good, just as long as they can work together. Because I feel like we're in this age of subscribe here, subscribe here, subscribe here, subscribe here, where you're not going to subscribe to everything. I think at some point it'll be figured out to where it can exist kind of in the same place, hopefully, if not spread out over too many places. But yeah, with that and companies promoting you, it only helps us. And like I said, that's the positive side of the social medias.
For sure. The streaming services are a wonderful tool to not, tune into your favorite wrestling organizations, but to see new faces. That's what I love about the different streaming services I have, is seeing new talent, seeing guys I've never seen before, and then going and finding their other matches where they normally wrestle. It's a beautiful thing.
And you're supporting indie wrestling.
Absolutely. I don't think, we message that. We try to get that through here on this show, that support indie wrestling as much as you can. The big guys, they're fun to watch. They're great to talk about. We break them down and analyze them, but they really don't need our help. It's the indies that really do need our help, and we do our best to try to help and support indie wrestling.
Yes, and thank you. And thank you for
one of my favorite hashtags.
Yes. And thank you for having a podcast like this to, further spread the information about not only indie wrestling, but indie wrestlers.
And this is I love that we have this platform to bring people like you on, Xac, because it helps you get your name out there. In turn, it helps us get our name out there, because everyone we have on, wrestling is a family, and you support your family by sharing, supporting. So we're bringing new eyes to you. You're bringing new eyes to us. It's just, I love every minute about it. And like you said, support indie wrestling, support indie wrestlers. All wrestling matters, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Xac, talk about where we can find you on social media for those who are not familiar with us, where we can see see you on socials and see some of your work if you have it posted?
So you can find me on Instagram, Xac Abstract. You can find me on Facebook, Xac Abstract. I don't have an X. I don't. I was never a Twitter guy, so I never got into X. But you can also find me on YouTube, Xac Abstract,
Okay.
and
Where?
Reddit as well. If anybody is on Reddit, you can find me on there, kind of promote myself in weird pockets of the internet.
Very
I know
easy to
there's
find. Very easy to find on Instagram. I just found you on
Yes.
Instagram. You pop up, so very easy to find, listeners. So get out there, find Xac on Instagram, find him on Facebook. He does not use X, which is fine. But yeah, go ahead and follow these guys. Keep in touch with them. See where they're going to be for upcoming shows, and just follow their career. I mean, I know that's one thing I love about this show is people we have on and following them and seeing where they're at after we get done talking to them or seeing where they're going to be in the future. I think that's a really cool thing about social media and independent wrestling.
Yes, absolutely.
I want to throw this out there for those who are listening after the fact and not watching. Xac may not be on X, but there is an X in his name. It is
That's right.
XAC.
Yes.
And maybe you could use that as a new tagline.
Yeah, and that's a shoot. That's my shoot name. So
I love
That's
it.
awesome.
I absolutely love it.
I know we talked a little bit about where you're going to be here in the future. There's an Iron Spirit Pro show. Talk about where we can find you in the coming weeks if we want to come out and support you and see you live.
okay, so May 10th, I will be in Kansas City, in Olathe, Kansas, actually, for Fountain City Pro Wrestling. The 11th, I will be in Normal, Illinois, at Iron Spirit Pro Wrestling. June 9th, I will be at the Berwyn Eagles Club, and I'm backtracking, but on May 30th or 31st, I will be at St. Louis Anarchy. And that's where I'm set up for right now, and hopefully I can just continue to stay busy.
That's what it's all about there, right?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Well, Xac, we really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to join us here on the Card Subject to Change. We want to let you know that you're welcome back here anytime, and we loved the chat that we had with you.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys having me on. I really do. And like I said, once again, I appreciate what you guys do for indie wrestling.
Absolutely. Happy to do it and happy to have you on. That's going to wrap it up for tonight and this episode of Card Subject to Change. Next week, we will be reviewing Backlash. Stay tuned to socials. We may pop that episode out a little bit early. Of course, like I said, we will have that presence at the Sandra Lee Memorial Car Show, talking and chatting with the wrestlers that we'll find there. So look for more information on that in the coming days on social. But for our guest, Xac Abstract, for my partner, Never Wrong Nick Bull, I am the Wizard CZ. This has been the Card Subject to Change podcast, the podcast for the fans, by the fans, powered by Lopez Pizza, built by Durham Remodeling, colored by Ryan Allison Tattoo, and protected by Jared Zook, Country Financial. We'll see you right here next week on Card Subject to Change.